What's up, guys? Welcome to the, what are we at, February Tidal Gardens live show. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind month here. How's everybody doing? So it's been a little while since we've done the live show thing. We try to do one about once a month or so. And yeah, the last month has felt very different here just because I'm still getting used to all the different changes that we've been making here, especially with staffing. We've got a lot more people working here, and also I'm just getting back from vacation and also trying to get back into the groove of all that. But hopefully you guys are doing okay. Thank you all for joining. And you can see that the countdown clock, just to make sure that everything is working properly. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. If not, let me know in chat. Got a lot of first-time people that are joining us. So there's Aaron J. Looks like GTA 5 Vids is a new person. So welcome, guys. Yeah. So I guess before we get started, I should say my thank yous to the Patreon crowd. So the people that oh no, I think I closed down that window. Whoops. So Patreon, guys, if you don't already know, is for the folks that it's mainly like a tip jar for creators. I'll just go ahead and say that. And most of the YouTube channels these days interface with Patreon. And I need to find the list of the folks that get shout outs as a result of their donations. Okay, I got it now. All right, so quick thank you to Bill Russell, Jeremy Altman, Ernest Wallace Jr., Elizabeth Dowell, Dave Davis, Thomas Tarrant, Keith Singer, Skylar Korn, Sana Nominette or Nomine, and I'm never really sure how to pronounce that, Puddle Aquatics, Amy Bruner, Juanita Thralkeld, Tim Garner, Harkins Aquatics, Diane Rishworth, Zara McIntosh, Brandy Camp, Ann Lyons, Gwen Nicodemus, Lisa Clow, Christopher Frame, Chuck Admire, Jean A. Van Voorst, Rico's Aquariums, Christopher H. Curry, Alan Jackson, Kevin Cortez, Trevor Joseph Overbeck, Ryan Kern, and I think that pretty much does it. So one of the patrons, Harkins. So I've met him once in person here, and he lives out in Las Vegas. And in mid-April, I'm going to be taking a trip to Las Vegas as a part of a conference that I'm going to be going to. It's not anything aquarium related. The conference, it's NAB. If you guys are familiar with that, it's the National Association of Broadcasters, and it's like this big trade show around. Well, obviously broadcast media, camera equipment, microphones, all that fun stuff to do with broadcast. So one of the days, there's like nothing going on at the conference. And so hopefully I'm able to get together with him, and he knows some folks in town with really spectacular aquariums that we can check out and do some filming there. And I'm really looking forward to that. Also looking forward to getting away from the Strip, because if you've ever been to Las Vegas, everything on the Strip is insanely expensive, just food and stuff like that. So I'm going to be staying at the Westgate Hotel, which is like not the best hotel, but it's the one that's attached to the conference center. And they only have this little breakfast. It's not even a buffet. It's more like a Starbucks. But yeah, breakfast is usually about like $18 to $25. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, any chance I can get to get away from the Strip and eat like better food for cheaper, I'm all about that. So anyway, Harkins Aquatics, $5 patron. There you go. I got an extra long shout out. So a lot of the international folks chiming in. I see someone from Germany, Quentin from Austria, Justin from Canada. Awesome. So I don't know what timing you guys are seeing on my clock, I see 6 minutes and 20 seconds or so. There's a 30-second delay whenever I'm broadcasting to YouTube. So if you see chat just streaming by and there's like this long delay as to when I actually answer questions or anything like that, attribute it all to the 30-second delay. So there is one other story that I can relate to you guys. There's not a ton of aquarium related progress here because we're in the quarantining phase. And as much as you'd like to speed past that quarantine, it takes 2 months, whether you like it or not. So a lot of it is just, well, we're just kind of sitting around waiting for quarantine. Even if there's delays in construction of other things, at this point, I don't really care. So there's been some delays as far as getting the second sump, getting the second system of tanks plumbed in, all that fun stuff, right? But I don't care because I'm still, no matter what, waiting for corals to finish the quarantine process. Now, I did a video earlier about my quarantine setup and what we have going on there. And we had these custom acrylic aquariums built for these plastic stands that we got from like Harbor Freight. Now, granted, I'm sure we're probably the first people ever to attempt to put tanks on a stand of that type. It's just like, it's a cart, right? It's a utility cart. And, you know, it looks robust and everything like that. We'd give it a try. We have the carts here. Why not? So over time, we noticed that it's probably not going to work out because we're using these individual coral trays, right? And just a bunch of different coral trays to hold all of the corals that we're quarantining. And pretty quickly we noticed that they're not flat. They're like all kind of bending down towards the middle of the tank. So the cart itself in the middle is sagging. Not a great sign, right? But then just yesterday, we started to notice the legs of the stand starting to bow. And anytime stuff starts to bow like that, it's just gonna fail. It's not gonna get better. It's not gonna straighten itself out. It's gonna fail. So the previous couple weeks leading up to that, even when I was starting to see that bowing happening in the middle, I placed an order with 80/20 to get a couple more stands, aluminum stands. They arrived a couple of days ago, and yesterday when I noticed that the legs were bowing, I'm like, hey guys, let's go ahead and do this right now. So yesterday we put together the aluminum stands and managed to move both running quarantine systems from the cart to the stands, plug everything back in, top everything back off. So there's like no interruption in our quarantine. But that was a pretty active and strenuous day, let me tell you. So if you wanted to see a picture of the new quarantine systems, I think right before this live show, I posted it to the community tab on YouTube, I posted it to Twitter, and I posted it to the folks on Patreon. So you can, if you're curious to see what they look like now, which I think they look pretty sweet myself, but you can catch a glimpse there. I'll do a video later on about quarantine because there's some other stories involving quarantine that I can share. Nothing altogether too positive, but we'll cover it because I think it is important that everybody get to see all the goods and bads of something like that. Let's see. Let's get back into some of the comments, guys. Jessica J is wondering about some Tangerine Dream Zoas, Michelangelo Zoas, from about a year ago, and they seem to be pretty slow growing. They're on a rock central sandbed of display. Any tips for faster growth? So Jessica, there's a lot of things that can prevent Zoas from growing quickly. And a lot of times it could be some random pest thing. It could be a fish nibbling thing. It could be crab thing. So any number of stuff could harass them. Certain algae growth could really bother them. So for us, what really helped, because we had this really persistent film algae that would oftentimes grow over top of our zoas. And it was pretty trivial to take like a makeup brush and keep it clean, but it was persistent. So in the times that we're not constantly cleaning the zoas, they would get not even overtaken, just harassed by this slight film algae. So we went and tried Vibrant, which is like this bacterial supplement that kind of just basically consumes the algae and consumes what the algae is feeding on. And not every coral responded super thumbs up to Vibrant. Like FAVIA didn't exactly like it. SPS, But one thing that did great with Vibrant was zoas. So right now the zoanthids that we have in our collection are like triple the size that they've ever been. And I think that down the road, I could probably see myself having a zoanthid only system that we constantly are dosing Vibrant in. I probably wouldn't be in a huge hurry to do it all the time on every kind of system, but for zoas, I was pretty impressed. Let's see. Jay Carey. Hey, Than, did you get that GFX 100 yet? That is still very much on the dream radar. Like, I'm kind of hoping to get a new camera because the actual stills camera that we use to take all of our photos is a Canon 5D Mark II. Interruptions. It always seems to have like some sketchiness right when the corals start for some reason. I don't know. Hope it's back. Yeah, all right. There's always this hiccup. Yeah, got no explanation for it, but it is not like the change in going from just like a black screen to the corals. So sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, the camera situation. Shooting with a very old Canon, very old, and I really do need to make an update. Now, to switch over from Canon to Fuji would cost me, I think, $15,000. No, I didn't just make that number out of like thin air. It's literally $15,000. So I've got so many other little bills going on that I probably won't do that just yet, but there is a more updated Canon camera that I'm considering. And I've seen it used on B&H for a little over $2,000, and that's a lot more palatable for me right now. Having said that, nothing is that palatable for me right now because I'm also trying to build a kitchen in this new building. So that's kind of taking some precedent. Yeah, it looks like the first image got bugged out. It was so if you are on the Tidal Garden site, there's one difference that we've made for the past 2 live shows, and that we have a thumbnail of the coral on the live show. So if you happen to miss something, I think you might be able to back up the video and see it. Now, since this kind of got glitched, I don't know if that'll show up, but if you just wanted to see a still image, you can see that on the Tidal Garden site. So if you're completely new to how this works, in order to purchase these corals, like item number 5 here, the Sunny D's, you would go to the Tidal Garden site under the live show or the live sale tab, and you'll see this video embedded as well as all of the corals. And previously, all you would see is like item number 1 or item number 6. And item number 6 would just be a number with the price would be $45. But now you can see an actual screen grab of the video so you can have some idea shopping through. Because, you know, we noticed, well, we always knew that that would have been better, but we finally were able to find a method to do this quickly because previously we just couldn't. But now that we did find that method, I think it's super helpful, especially for the people that are on mobile, because so many people watch this live show on a mobile device, and so just seeing like item number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 doesn't exactly help them, right? But seeing thumbnails, I think it's going to do a lot of good. Okay. I apologize. I'm probably going to be missing a bunch of questions, but I'll try to work my way up. I'm just going to go with basically what's at eye level. Chris Burns, do you guys ship to Ireland? No, US only. I should do a video just about international shipping in general. It's not that easy. Let's see. Alfredo is asking, can two Gonioporas that have been living fine side by side suddenly decide to go to war? Can it be a temporary thing? I suppose any two corals could start to fight. I mean, two Goniopora, it's kind of unlikely. One thing that I would be more worried about is if one starts to do poorly and gets a disease, it would disease the other one, but not so much a hostility thing. Pablo is asking, how did you get into this hobby / job? That's a very long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. So this is a hobby that I was in for a very, very long time, probably since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And eventually my interest went from just like the freshwater side to the saltwater fish side to the saltwater coral side. And then right around the time that I was in college, I decided to do this thing as like a side hustle, let's call it. And over the years, this side hustle just gained a little bit more momentum, And one day I'm sitting at my corporate office job. I was doing like business law stuff and had the corner office, all that stuff that you're supposed to aspire to. And I'm like, I kind of don't love everything that I'm doing right now. And this side hustle over here has enough momentum that it could probably replace my day job. And that started me to be a lot more serious about Tidal Gardens. And now we're still a small company, but it's the lifestyle change was all important to me, because I was probably going through like a good old-fashioned midlife crisis, and I pretty much decided that I want to only do stuff I enjoy for the rest of my life and get paid for it. And so here we are. And I'm sure it's not exactly that simple, but that's kind of the story also. Matthew Sika is asking, Fan, I'm here to keep count of the Indo ban into international shipping questions. All right, got to keep the scoreboard live, right? One thing that I'll mention about this live show is talking about our staffing and everything like that. I've got a media intern from the university here, University of Akron, and she shot all of this video. So personally, I think she's done a great job. Like, some of this stuff looks pretty much like I shot it. Now, the other big difference is the first maybe 80-something corals probably do look different than from past sales, because one big change that we've made to these aquariums is we've now decided to go with some Radion Pros versus fluorescence. So halfway through the show, it changes from these LEDs to fluorescent lights. So you can kind of get a change in appearance. I see more glitter lines, obviously, and I see a lot more of like the reds and the violets coming through. But it's just an observation. Like, I've been told a million times when it comes to how things appear, that 99% of the people have no idea what I'm even talking about. It's like, it's not that serious, guys. So it's just these observations that I sometimes make when it comes to audio and video. Okay. Okay, so previously somebody was asking, I think it was a Prodigal Son, how do we get to the live show? This is my first show. So you can always get to the live show by going to tidalgardens.com/live. And that's where you're going to see all these items. It should be in the description of the video as well. You can always check it out there. Stoner's 75G Reef. What is your opinion on the perfect tank size for a beginner reef? Thanks. So I made a video about like the top 5 tips for beginners, and the number one thing that I get the most heat over is that exact recommendation, because my recommendation is 120 gallon tank is the best tank for a reef, for a beginner reef tank. And there's a bunch of people who are like, well, what if I can't fit it in my space? What if I can't afford it? Look, if you can't afford a 120 gallon tank, you can definitely not afford to fill a 120 gallon tank. So anyway, the 120 gallon tank is like the best, it's probably the best 4-foot tank. And the reason why that 4-foot thing matters so much is there's a lot of standardized stuff that works with 4-foot tanks. So whether you're working with like a 50 gallon tank that you got ultra cheap on, I don't know, some like a PetSmart sale, let's say, a lot of cheap 55 gallon tanks out there, but all that same equipment and infrastructure that would work on a 50 gallon tank or a 55 gallon tank works on a 120 gallon tank. You're just getting over double the volume. And I'm gonna one day make a video talking about the luxuries in this hobby. The number one luxury in this hobby is tank volume. There's nothing like it. There's so many benefits to it that you can accomplish a lot more with aquascape, a lot more with stocking, a lot more stability all around. So there you go. There's my again, my hot take, 120 gallons minimum. If you could go bigger, do it. There you go. Let's see. Marco is asking, what is the best yellow coral? I mean, there's no such thing as a best anything, really, right? It kind of depends on what you value. My personal favorite yellow coral is a TUBASTREA, which is a non-photosynthetic yellow coral that nobody should really own because they're difficult to keep. You have to feed them a heck of a lot to keep them happy and alive. I made a video in the past month about TUBASTREA, so you can see everything there. But I love TUBASTREA, sun corals. Adam is asking, I have right around 5 parts per million nitrates and 0 parts per million phosphates. Is that a problem? Should I take my PhosGuard offline? Yeah, actually, I would. I personally would take that offline because I worry more about seeing 0 nitrate, 0 phosphate than if your nitrate was 50 and your phosphate was 1 part per million. Stuff can definitely do okay with elevated nutrients. It's not ideal, but it's not the worst thing in the world ever. Bottoming out 0, that's when certain biological processes absolutely stop. And that's a much, much bigger deal. So yeah, I would personally look to have a little bit more phosphate in your water. Trivia question. How much phosphates do we have in some of our systems here at Tidal Gardens? Quick answer, 2 parts per million. Correct answer is 2. And if you look at our, sorry, bumping the desk here. If you look at our frag plugs and everything like that, I wouldn't say that we have horrendous algae issues either. Now, we stopped using Vibrant in this particular tank, so there might be a little bit of the like the film algae and stuff like that coming back, but I think by any textbook definition, 2 parts per million phosphate, you should have a serious algae issue, and we simply don't. So again, given the choice between elevated nutrients within some reason and 0, I'm always taking the elevated nutrients. Let's see. Particle Sun, are these names made by Tidal Gardens? Most of them are not. We try not to. Many people have heard this story before, but the short version of this story is we're not that creative. And the ideal name for us, for any coral, is what might show up in Google search. And if we make up our own names for stuff, it'll never come up in Google search. So for example, like Fascination Favia, that's, I mean, somebody else named that. Now, the only time where we do have to name something is if we've like looked and looked and we just simply can't find anything out there, then we'll name it something probably very boring and not that creative. Let's see. John Howard McDermott. I got a brand new light for my tank. Light is slightly small for the tank, but I cannot fully light the tank up. The corners of the tank are like 50 to 100 par. Any suggestions for corals for it? There's a ton of corals that can grow just fine in 50 to 100 par. In fact, I would say that just about most corals can. There's only like a handful that probably wouldn't do well. I would probably avoid things like Acropora. Maybe most Montipora could use more light than that, but everything else could grow in 50 to 100 par. So we're looking at some CYPHASTREA here. Previously, we looked at some FAVIA. Any and all of these things would grow well. Let's see. Thank you, thank you. Some people saying some very nice things. I appreciate it all. I'm looking for some questions though. Coral Lovers, or Coral Lover S. Hello, Than. If I wanted to calibrate pH probe in my calcium reactor, can I use any brand calibration solution? Yes. So every calibration solution, now I might be talking out of my neck, but I would think that any calibration solution should give you a set baseline standard. So I think that people would use pH 7, pH like, basically you want to do like maybe like 2 or 3 different data points in order to tweak the pH probe. In practice for us, we don't do it very often because we're only really interested to see if the calcium reactor is running properly, and we can tell when either the pH goes really low and we know that it's basically just making a milkshake and not discharging any effluent, or the tank has run out, we're just running regular tank water through it, and the pH is 8.3. So if it's like 6 point nothing or 8.3, we know something is wrong. Otherwise, it stays pretty consistent. Lagoon Reef. Is acro better to go with a shallow or a deeper tank? It's really up to you. I happen to like the way that deeper tanks look, but I don't like the way deeper tanks have to be maintained. After about like 28 inches, that tank is not a whole lot of fun for me. So I happen to, again, aesthetically love the deeper tank. 45 inches deep, right? But I'm not going to climb into a tank. Let's be real. That tank is going to look real crummy. But I do appreciate the extra height visually. To please, what is up, man? Sorry I can't be here today, Than. Just wanted to check in. Have a great time. Aw, thank you. Thank you very much. Very generous for the $14.99. We need to get together again. I've met To Please in person. He came for the barbecue a couple. It was actually last year. This year, I think we're going to be skipping the barbecue, and we'll pick it back up later. There's just too much random stuff going on this year. It's a lot. But I think people had a really good time and everything like that. Yeah, it's just a lot of planning that has to go into it. Fellow Reefer, because of your video, I went and decided to build a 72 by 24 by 24. So it's a 180. Okay, very nice. As I planned to do mixed reefs for the video. Thanks for the video that you made for beginners. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. A lot of people didn't like it, but hey, whatever. You do you, boys. Hey, Than, do you find blanophilia and dendrophilia easier than tubastria? Some dendrophilia maybe, some dendrophilia definitely not, and some blanophilia definitely not. So far, like the fathead dendros are doing great, and The regular yellow Tubastria are doing great. What's up, Harkins? I was just telling a story about coming and visiting you in Vegas when I go attend that trade show. So hopefully we can check out some cool tanks, get some video shot. It'll be a fun time. Lenny Kruger wanted a 120, but the only spot I had to put it in wouldn't really fit. Yeah, you know what? Big tanks. Turns out that they take up volume, right? They're literally big tanks. So I went with the 75. You'll be perfectly happy with that, I'm sure. Philip, what is your opinion on the ZOANTHIDS system? I'm running a 100% SPS tank for 3 months and it's doing well so far. I just can't get used to how much I must feed. So I've never personally run ZOANTHIDS, and I'm really not a huge fan of the ultra low nutrient methodologies. But then again, I'm doing a lot of coral farming here, and for me, that sort of thing really isn't too conducive to what we do. But I know plenty of people that have enjoyed it. It does get kind of it's both expensive and micromanagey. So if you like to constantly be like tweaking your chemistry like that, ZOANTHIDS, Aquaforest, Red Sea, like all that stuff, that is very much your lane. In a coral farming situation, definitely not my thing. Ron Mega, can you add too much coral too quickly? I think I know what you're really asking. It comes down to like bioload. I don't really think so. You can add a ton of coral pretty quickly. I think the bigger problem with adding a lot of coral and quickly is that if there are pest issues coming in, a simple dip really only can do so much. Like a quarantine process is a lot safer. So in that sense, you might be introducing some craziness down the road by adding stuff quickly. Chris Burns, do you have a favorite Micromusa lordhowensis? Not necessarily a favorite, but I like the crazy rainbow colored guys. With more yellow the better, I'd say. I don't know any of the names, so no fashionable names. Okay, please smash those thumbs up, people. Aw, thank you again. $1.99. Yeah, it's like I wonder if I'm sure that the thumbs up thing does help the algorithm to some degree, but historically the what the? No, we're not. Sorry about that. Like all my phones are ringing. So yeah, I don't know how it affects the how it affects like how much my live shows get seen, because like historically the live shows don't get seen nearly as much as like a regular video I make. I'm gonna set this on the ground so it doesn't vibrate the table. Oh. Let's see. Fellow Reefer, now that you've used Vibrant, have you done any changes where you turn off the skimmer or anything? So we just stopped using Vibrant, and we did turn off the skimmer for like a little bit at some point, but then over time I think we just ended up just dosing a lot of Vibrant and just stopped caring about the protein skimmer aspect. Now Vibrant sure as heck worked on all the algae that we were seeing in our systems, like all of it, but we were also seeing certain corals not like it, and very few corals. It's not even like, oh, like a huge swath of corals didn't do well. It was just onesie twosies here and there, but they looked really upset, like especially Favia. That's the thing that we noticed it most in. And so we decided to kind of scale back the Vibrant because we didn't have algae issues to begin with. But what algae we did have pretty much got eliminated. And at that point, it's like, let's just let the algae do what it does at this point. Because a lot of the algae that we really didn't like we ended up getting away from anyway, because that was like the what do you call it? Like some like the leafier green algae and stuff like that. So Vibrant took care of all that. Okay, It's a Me Mario is asking, do you think AI Prime 16 HD in a Red Sea Reefer 170 can grow SPS, or should I buy Radeon? I don't really have any experience with the AI Primes. At this stage, I would have a hard time believing that any LED couldn't grow SPS. I mean, like if you're just talking about coral growth, practically any halfway decent light should work out. It's just a matter of what type of feature set you're looking for. And I think that for the sort of situation that you might run into is some of the corals might not color up as nicely if they don't have as broad a spectrum of like different colored LEDs and stuff like that. And that's kind of why people tend to like fixtures like the Radeons or the Orfex and things like that. It's just they have a ton of different colored LEDs with really good spread, and they cost a pretty penny, but they just have like the most, I guess, robust broad spectrum and power. But for just growth, I think a lot of stuff would work. Keelan, hi Than, hope the new building projects are going well for you guys. They are going well in the sense that they're not really going at all, but that's okay. Let's see, finishing your question here. Have you seen the mariculture practice of growing branching SPS by hanging them for wires? Yes, I have. And have you considered trying this? No, I haven't. I have seen that. There people are doing that quite a lot in like the Caribbean and stuff. So the reason why I don't is because one day I have to send these things out in the mail, and the way that we ship stuff out, we have plugs and we put them through like a little styrofoam float thing and then put them in a cup. So having just a kind of like a multi-directional growing SPS, that doesn't really help us when it comes time to actually sell the coral. And when it comes to coral growth speed, we typically don't have a lot of issues there either. Color's the main thing. I say that more than anything else, like the stuff that helps us get better color is what we're interested in. Lenny Kruger, let's see. I'm actually about 5 minutes away from the greenhouse in a Century home in West Akron, cycling as we speak. I'll see you soon. Awesome. Awesome. Attila, hi Than. When new building video is coming? Let's see. I'm going to do a video coming up about probably a little story time involving the quarantine systems, because that's been on my mind lately. We'll do more of the building update when there's more building update to talk about, I guess. Because of the quarantine process takes like 2 months, that's kind of the bottleneck for progress reef aquarium wise. So a lot of the other like delays and stuff like that happen, it's like I don't really care, because even if all this other stuff got done, I wouldn't be putting corals in those systems anyway. So fine, put me on the back burner. I don't care. But this coming week, a whole bunch of stuff is happening. But again, I'm not really sure if it's necessarily reef related. Like I might be getting some kitchen stuff done. There's some HVAC stuff done, but it's boring, and you know what? It hasn't happened yet. So it's entirely possible that that's going to be delayed too. We'll see. All right, 2 Please is checking out. I will see you guys later. See you later, Jeremy. Thank you. Everybody loves 2 Please and all these different live chats because he's the one that just like throws out all the money in super chats. Greg Reefboy, hi Than, like that you're now having flash sales. Pretty cool. Yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to do the flash sale stuff now too. Especially because now that we have this media intern, I just like throw heaps of stuff onto her plate because she loves to be behind a camera, whether it's shooting stills, whether it's shooting video. Like she shot all this video that you're seeing on this live show today. And so I think that if anything, she doesn't like to be in front of a computer editing. So I think any opportunity to be behind a camera and going around and shooting or taking the drone up and stuff like that, she's all about. So one of those things is the flash sale. I'm like, you like to shoot stills? Here you go. Here's 200 and something corals to shoot stills of. So it's worked out nicely. Marco is asking, is it true that Phromia, Lynchia starfish don't survive in our reef tanks? I've had Lynchia starfish that survive for years, but I think it's because our tanks are quite large. The smallest tanks that I've ever put one in was like a 240-gallon tank, and it did great. So if anything, it might just be a nutritional issue where they're just simply not getting enough to eat. Because most people's tanks, I'm going to say 99% of everybody's tanks, under 200 gallons, right? So bigger tank, much bigger chance for success. Let's see, Ron Mega, vibrant with refugium, will it have an effect with nutrient control with Chaeto? Yes, I would be surprised if Chaeto lasts more than a week with vibrant going on. Like, it just disintegrates. And like when we had some Chaeto in just like a little basket, it turned to nothing, like very, very quickly. There's certain algae where vibrant just obliterates it really quickly. And like certain things are really tough, they hang on for a long time. Certain things practically gone overnight. Zachary Scott, in your Recordia vid, you mentioned that Yumas can be difficult and hadn't had a lot of luck with them. Has your opinion of Yumas changed, and would you recommend that casual reefers stay away from them? So not all Yumas are created the same. A lot of times when people see like the really exotic Yumas that are like the truly eye-catching ones, there's some crazy colored like rainbow ones, like bright red ones. Anytime you get like these, these purple and yellow crazy rainbow guys, those almost as soon as they land here in the United States are on their way out. Like they're imported about to die. So, at the same time, I've seen some people with like some orange Yumas in their tank that have like taken over their tank. Very few, but I have seen it. Now, would I suggest a Yuma for a beginner? Again, certain ones will do better than others, but I don't know. I wouldn't consider any of them particularly easy. If you really want, there's certainly worse corals to try, but it wouldn't be nearly at the top of my list for a beginner to try, let's just say. Entity is asking, did you find any Majanos for your pest jar? No, we really haven't. Like, I consider myself super lucky that I don't have Majanos. And I'm pretty sure that I don't have them because, we haven't seen them for years. Yeah, because I've seen people that have had problems with those, and it's nuts. They can swim around and stuff. It's crazy. Let's see. OK Can is asking, hey Than, do you think the prices on high-end lighting, especially Radion, is justifiable? What do you think of the new Gen 5 Radions? Thanks. Come visit Singapore sometime. I would love to come visit Singapore anytime, even with coronavirus issues. I'm game. So as far as like the price of Radions are like the most expensive light, right? That I know of. Is there something more expensive than a Radion? I don't know. If I was paying full retail for Radions, it would be a tough pill to swallow, but if you only need like one or two, you could swallow that pill, right? I need like 200 of them. So like, ooh. Are they justifiable? So for a coral farm that like relies on growth and coloration, they might be. They might be, because there's nothing worse than having a tank full of corals that are just not quite colored up well enough to sell. For a home hobbyist, I mean, you can always go with cheaper lighting, but at the same time, there's a lot of lights that are at the similar price points, I guess. Could you get by with cheaper lighting? Sure. There's always some trade-off. I mean, you could get great color out of just those $100 Amazon fixtures that I've shown on my channel before, and throw in some ATI blue pluses, coral pluses, maybe like one actinic, and you're going to get great color. People buy radions for completely different reasons. So yeah, there's plenty of lights that if you needed to just like baseline grow and color up corals, a lot of cheap options out there for you. But you did ask if it was justifiable. Maybe. Like for us, it works out because we really, in a building like what we have downstairs, we wouldn't be able to control temperature very well if we had all fluorescent lighting. So yeah, it's working out quite well for us. And as far as like Gen 5s, I've never played with them at all. I mean, I could have gotten an early model and done that whole thing, but like on my channel, we don't do first looks on anything. Unless I've used something for like over a year, I don't really even want to talk about it. And you've probably seen generally on my channel, I don't really talk about equipment that much. I mean, live show stuff where we're talking about conversationally about certain pieces of equipment, sure, but there's plenty of other channels that can talk about specific details of products. Most of the products that I use really aren't hobbyist scale anyway, and so who's my audience for that really? Like, I'm interested in MRC skimmers, the big ones. Like, nobody cares about that except for like public aquariums and people that want big coral farms. So yeah, I typically don't get into like into the weeds about too much of that. Let's see. Richard Tar, do you have any current news on the Indonesian coral export news? Should we expect some crazy prices for most of it for a while? Yeah, so one of the importers that we work with does have Indonesian corals. We did get some. Are there crazy prices? Some of it's crazy prices. I mean, so for some of the really, really, really nice LPS, I mean, wholesale, it was like over $1,000. Yeah, so you could expect some high prices still. Definitely. Let's see. Don't know how long those high prices will last, but needless to say, I did not purchase said coral for $1,000. I have no interest in that. I mean, it was pretty nice. It was okay, but it wasn't, wasn't all that. It is not something that I would want to try to sell for like $2,000 and then ship in the winter. I don't know if I need that much stress in my life. Let's see. Okay, so John Howard McDermott. Hey, one more question. I'm trying to make a torch or hammer garden. I do not believe that the torches and hammers get along. They kind of don't really. If I were to keep my hammer, what could I grow on the same rock? If you, provided that nothing touches, that goes a long way. But if there's going to be stuff touching, maybe just other types of hammers. I mean, there's always some type of combat that goes on with Euphilia. So it's not great, but that's kind of what you'd be looking at. Leslie Stonebreaker, is distortion with 3/4 inch glass much worse than with 1/2 inch glass? Yes, it is. It is worse. I'm sensitive to distortion, but maybe if my new tank were higher, closer to eye level, that would be better. Okay, so with 3/4 inch glass, it's noticeably more distortion. Maybe, Yeah, so if it was like between chest to head level, it would be better for you because it's all about angle, right? And so if your tank is always low and you're always looking down at an angle through the glass, you're always going to see a distortion. But yeah, anytime that you're going to look left or look right, you're gonna notice it. It's not completely horrendous, but it'll be noticeable over half inch. Ron Meg, I've learned so much from you. Just wanted to say thank you. Well, thank you for hanging out this whole time. I appreciate the following that I have. I don't think that I say it enough, but the only reason anybody knows about me at all is because of this YouTube channel. Like when I was like some big shot executive with the corner office and the fancy title and stuff like that, I would have to like validate my existence every single time I met somebody new. Here with this coral reef hobby thing, I show up to like a trade show and just about everybody knows who the heck I am. And so like that is not because I have a greenhouse in Ohio selling corals. It's specifically because of my following online. So I appreciate the heck out of you guys. So again, you're welcome for the advice, but thank you for being part of the community. It's awesome. Dan, it's called COVID-19 now. Okay. Let's see. Robert Warren. I'm sorry for taking so long with the super chat. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate it. Okay, I need to put somebody in timeout for a little while. All right. By the way, that's the first person I've timed out in a really long time. Normally, you get the insta ban, but I'm going to give this person the benefit of the doubt that they just didn't know that that every single entry that they were saying was showing up in chat. So if they happen to show back up spamming the channel, they will get insta banned forever. Just gonna throw that out there. So anyway, moving on. Entity, Than, why did Advanced Reef Aquarium shut down your other company? Pretty simple. Doing dry goods. Actually, this goes back to my other comment about making equipment-ish videos. Aquarium equipment just isn't my thing. And when you compare like just the work that goes into that versus the work that goes into like the coral farming stuff, there really wasn't any comparison. I had a business partner for that company, and he decided to like leave the hobby altogether. It just wasn't working out, so I just ditched it. It was no real big loss on my end. Okay. Stephen Gill, I wish we had tidal gardens in the UK. You might. Well, no, not actual tidal gardens, but you might have similar operations starting up. I had visited the UK back in October, I think, and I think there's plenty of people interested in doing coral farming. Maybe less so now that Indo opened back up, but I still think it's a worthwhile activity. S2 Minute. Then, are your BBQs held on the same dates each year? We've only had 2 ever, and they were roughly at the same time period. Usually like late summer before kids' classes start and all that. But we're probably going to be skipping it this year and maybe picking it up again next year. Ireef, he said hi like 19 times. You know what? Maybe he's on his phone. Maybe there's like some little glitch. I'm going to give some people the benefit. So you guys can remember this, okay? This is the one time I didn't permaban somebody. Okay, Predator Bass. I only keep a 2.5 gallon tank in my room, but I love watching bigger tank online, and I learn about different species anyway. Yeah, I think that YouTube does allow for a lot of vicarious living, doesn't it? So I tend to watch all kinds of videos with great interest about stuff that I would never do personally. I think that, what are those things called? Those paludariums. So it's like a freshwater tank with some rock work also, and plants and stuff. Like, I think those are like so cool because you get the full transition from like aquatic plant to semi-aquatic plant to terrestrial plant. And yeah, you can do some really, really cool displays. Now, would I ever put one like that together? Probably not, but I think it's really cool. I also like watching all kinds of like DIY type stuff, and I know that I will DIY nothing for the rest of my life, but it's cool to see. Let's see. White corals is the Tidal Gardens of Europe. I would like to visit white corals. I've seen pictures only. Fellow Reefer, $4.99. Thank you for the super chat. Token of appreciation for all you do for us and this reefing community. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Zhang. How do you deal with distortion when you take a picture in the tank? So the key there is you have to be completely perpendicular to the glass. So you can't be at an off angle. Well, you can, but you're going to introduce distortion. So if at all possible, you want to be like at a dead 90 degrees to the glass with the lens. Logan Arnold, do you have any thoughts on the Reef Breeders Photon V2? Unfortunately, I don't. I have no experience with it. Mostly reefs. What? No BBQ this year? Yeah, it's not looking good. Not looking good for the barbecue. Partly because I've done zero planning for it. It's unlikely. Well, okay, here's the thing, okay? The barbecue on my end is actually pretty simple as far as like the logistics of just setting a date, preparing the property and everything. It really comes down to going out and talking to vendors about filling gift bags and stuff like that. And it's never a conversation that I really want to have because as a business owner, like we get hit up for free stuff all the time, right? And it's like, it's exhausting. And I don't really want to be on the other end of that. Like I never liked asking people for stuff. If you guys are cool with like no gift bags, we can do barbecues all the time here. But that's probably the biggest point of friction, I would say. Like, and I think that a lot of companies would actually like to do that stuff, but it's just the process of me going out and asking, which I hate. So that's kind of what's stifling the progress of that, I would say. And the other thing is you kind of have to do a lot. So, okay, I got a little story for you, and it will tie back into the barbecue planning stuff. Over time, my role at this company has changed greatly from somebody that propagates coral and sells it online, like you see, to more of like a project manager. So I really couldn't tell you the last time that I personally cut a coral and glued it to a plug. Like I just do so much more in the way of just keeping, like putting together project lists and putting my staff towards those projects, making sure that they have everything that they need, taking care of all like the business functions. So what starts off as a hobby-based business eventually, at least for me, has turned into a very completely different job and very little as far as doing the reef aquarium stuff, right? So I think that just the amount of time that I have to spend doing project management just here at Tidal Gardens to do another barbecue event, which is all basically project management again, but just duplicated. So just because let's say I ask so-and-so company for some samples of some fish food, great. They say, we would love to, great. If you don't keep bugging them, they just won't send it. So it's just, you almost have to keep nagging. And just like building this building, for example, it's like, hey, here is tens of thousands of dollars for, I don't know, a kitchen or whatever, an air conditioner. And it's like, if you don't keep bugging them. It just never happens. Like what? So yeah, I'm kind of like cool with not project managing stuff. So anyway, that's the barbecue story right there. It's not that I don't want to hang out with you guys and have barbecue. It's this other stuff that makes the barbecue stuff less fun. And here's the thing. I charge like $25. I think you guys should have a gift bag waiting for you when you come, as well as some food, right? Mostly Reeves is like, we don't need no stinking sponsors or vendors. I appreciate that, but I don't know. We're asking a lot for entrance. We're asking you guys to come a long way and get rooms and stuff. I try to look out for everybody, but that is the friction. And it's not even the companies. Like plenty of companies would say yes, and they will follow through. Like I'm super appreciative for the companies that supported the barbecue last year, but it's again. It's the process, right? It's the process. Okay, I missed a billion questions. I apologize. I may or may not get to them, okay? But I did see one question here. Mahai A. Are you really still happy with the Abyss pump? I'm considering getting the 100. The Abyss pump is the most real deal big expenditure item that exists that I'm aware of. It is an insanely expensive pump, and it is so good. It is so good. I would, if anybody, again, if it fits into your budget and your disposable income, and you are looking for the baddest pump that you'll ever see, yes, do it. It is that good. It is really, really good. Let's see, GTA 5. Do you shake test kit reagents before performing a test on the water? I do, when I did them. Yeah, I think so, because it's you can't really rely on that stuff just not settling out. So yeah, I shake everything. Angelina Powell. My clowns are hosting in my elegance coral. Will they kill it? Probably not. It's not great that they're hosting in the elegance, but I've seen many clownfish do host in elegances. Now, once the coral gets larger, it's like the clownfish are really going to be too small to really even bother them that much. But I know that sometimes clowns can get a little bit too boisterous with their contact and really bother a lot of different types of corals. But elegances of all the corals for them to host in, it's not necessarily a bad one. OK Can is asking, by the way, what's the coral in the thumbnail? That is the glitter bomb goni. It's a Goniopora. Okay, so I'm going to use this word, but it's not literal, okay? Of a wait list. There is no such thing as a wait list for that coral, but there are about 10 people that would love to have the opportunity to buy that piece. It's something like $300 or something like that, and we can't even have enough to sell all these people. It's insane. It's not the most expensive coral that we have, but it's by far the most in demand piece that we have. Mostly Reefs. I show up to visit you all and buy coral, not for free stuff. Oh, I appreciate it. And Mr. Andy Fizz, when does the new shop open? Well, it's technically, well, I guess technically Tidal Gardens isn't really open. So all the visits are by appointment. But if you do happen to show up by appointment, we can show you around the new building. Right now, there's not a ton to see because we're going through our quarantine stuff now, but we're only like a couple of weeks away from getting stuff out of quarantine and into our new tanks, and then setting up a new thing for quarantining new stuff. So the process is moving along nicely, and it's the back half of the building so far that we've built out all of the aquariums and whatnot. So that is coming together nicely. Robert Warren, you should replace yourself. Do what you love. I kind of do, Robert. So in a way, I guess like my way of backing out of stuff a little bit is the project managing sort. I mean, when I do a lot of work, I can do a lot of work, but I kind of like the idea of this is some entrepreneurship talk for you guys. I like building systems where I empower employees to do certain tasks and give them all the resources possible to make them succeed, and reward them for that. And I found that like I've done that with the 2 full-time guys here, and it's wonderful. Like I don't worry about me having to do everything here, and that's just simply not true with a lot of businesses. That because I talk to other business owners, and a recurring theme that I hear a lot is if I'm not there to micromanage, everything goes to hell. Like unless I am there to make sure everything goes smoothly, all of it is going to be completely dysfunctional. And I'm like the exact opposite situation. Like I went on a vacation for 1 week to Costa Rica, and I knew everything. And I mean, everything was going to be just fine. And that is such a wonderful feeling. So yeah, I like my idea of a great time is sitting at home, watching some movies with the cats and doing nothing. That sounds like a great night. Okay, Nava's Reef is asking, hi, purchased 2 things from the live sale. Want to purchase some others. Can they still be combined? Yes, you can purchase from anything from the site. The only thing is when you're checking out, when you go to the shipping methods section, just select like live show or adding to an existing order. I think it's called adding to an existing order, and we will ship everything out together for you. So yes, absolutely combining orders is seamless. Greg Reefboy, hi Than, have you decided to go with a different skimmer in the sump in the new building, and what type of bioblocks are you using? Okay, so the bioblocks that we're currently using are a combination of Marine Pure and Brightwell. The skimmer is still loud. I still don't love how loud it is, and I am definitely going to be giving MRC a call later. I think that at one time they were working on a DC version of their skimmer pump that has me interested. Now their skimmers are very expensive. Like whatever you think a very expensive skimmer is, like multiply that by 5, and that's probably the ballpark that you're looking at with an MRC skimmer. Very good, very industrial piece of machinery. I would need at least 2 to start with. And that's a huge expense right now, especially with me trying to build a kitchen also. So anyway, it's still a possibility, but I'm not gonna call MRC until I have like that much that I could just throw at them to make the deal happen. Like, I don't know about other people, but like I don't usually even like to engage with other companies until I can actually make a deal like on the spot. So because otherwise I just feel like I'm just wasting your time. So one of these days, MRC, if you're watching, you'll get a call from me. Craig's Reef, hi, from the UK. Do you deliver that far? Unfortunately, no. We can only ship to the US. And Silent One, thank you very much for answering him much faster than me. Entity, hey Than, what's an easy Acropora? Acropora level easy that's not a Bali green slimer. Can't find one here. So if you wanted just to find an easier type of Acropora, I would suggest finding one in somebody's home aquarium that you like that has been growing for a while, because there's a huge difference in corals, especially acros, coming straight from the ocean versus stuff that's been growing in captivity a long time. And that one step right there is orders of magnitude more to do with how hardy they are or how hardy they're gonna be than what type that they are. Certain types like Tarakis and whatever the heck a Walt Disney is, like that stuff is always going to be super fragile. Okay, I get that, but for the most part, if something has been aquacultured in captivity, that's a great starting point. iReef, have you ever sold anything to Roman Atwood? Not that I know of. I would love to see you visit his tank. Yeah, I think that he's down in Columbus, if I recall, but I don't know. I haven't followed his channel much. The silent one. Okay, so he's answering Entity, Pink Lemonade, or Mr. Miyagi. Acros are easy ones. Height Productions. Love your streams and your corals especially, but it sucks that you don't ship to Canada. Will you ever ship to Canada? Well, never say never, but right now we do not. Again, international shipping, I need to do a video about that because, first of all, I don't really know what I'm talking about because I've talked to people that know about international shipping, but I've never personally gone through the process of it. And I mean, it's an ordeal, like crossing national boundaries with stuff that's CITES controlled is a big deal. Like by definition, it is a big deal. You'll never see a transaction where it's like, oh, I just ordered 3 corals to Canada. Never going to happen. It'll be $1,000 per coral. Like it's like the pain in the butt aspect of it, of sending stuff overseas. Unless you're talking about mega gigantic orders, it's almost a non-starter. Okay, predator bass. This may be a super question, lol, but what is color temp? So color temp is the simplest way that I can say it is right around 6,500K is yellow, 10,000K and up is more blue. So it's just to give you an idea of what certain corals look like under different lighting, going from more daylight colors towards more of the actinic end of the spectrum. Now, the way that we accomplish it for the purposes of this video is through a special effect. So we're not actually changing the color temperature on the light itself and then filming it. It's done by a special effect. And it just gives you like an idea of what stuff looks like. For whatever reason, I'm not really sure what's up with it this time around, but it's a lot more green than usual. And I think that's some setting in the camera might have just been coming across more green, but there's a lot of green in this image that's usually not there. I'm gonna go ahead and blame the intern for that. Okay. Robert Warren, so jelly. I'm working on doing the same. Keep living the dream, sir. Oh, I appreciate it. So part of it, you see, I joked about how lazy I am, but I don't really think I'm, in practice, I don't think I'm all that lazy. But then again, I'm desperately trying to not do stuff. Like, I even some people, there's like this trend, and I don't know if it's still going on, right? But it's like this hustle porn thing that entrepreneurs start to watch on YouTube and stuff like that, where these guys are talking about how they want to work like 50 hours a day, and like, you know, I only need to sleep 1 hour per night because I'm doing such and such, and that makes me super productive for the rest of the time. And it's like, I'm gonna out hustle everybody and hustle all that. Hell no. So my problem with all that, and maybe they are successful, but they're also the type of people that will be selling a book in about 5 years about how they were manic depressive, they were on methamphetamines the entire time making videos and trying to sell those hustle books, and now they're trying to sell some book about their redemption arc coming out of some drug-fueled, insane period of their life. Like, I don't think any of that is healthy. So I'm like on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I'd just like to chill out, hang out here with you guys, look at some corals, and chat about reef aquariums. That sounds like a pretty good time to me. But yeah, it's like I'm the anti-hustle porn dude. Let's see. Ron Mega is asking, one last one before I go. SAMMOCORA, coral care, lighting and flow. So the SAMMOCORA in our systems have done kind of well in slightly higher light. I'd say like medium to high light. And as far as flow goes, I don't know if they care that much, but I think the ones have done better were in slightly higher flow. So Edward is asking about some beginner corals as far as like softies that I would recommend, but besides zoas. So I happen to like neon green toadstool leathers. They're fairly easy. They grow nice and large eventually, not super fast, but they add like a nice punch of color, and they're not difficult at all. So I would go with like a toadstool leather of some sort. Let's see. HTC 148. My skimmer overflowed into the sump. I'm gonna guess you did a water change, and should you do another? You could. Like skimmate, it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's basically what we're dosing into our tank when we do like amino acid feedings and stuff like that. Again, not the worst thing, but just to control some of the nutrient spike issues you might want to. Okay, so Stephen Vigilante is asking, any tips on GSP? I can get every coral in my tank to grow except green stars. So green star polyps, I think, are one of the ones that benefit the most from really strong flow. A lot of times I've personally experienced green star polyps struggling is when they just don't get quite enough flow and they start to accumulate detritus and problematic algae on the base of their body, that purple base. So the times that I've had the most success with them is when they're like on a vertical face getting hit with a lot of flow and they just like spread and grow like crazy. Predator bass, hustle, hustle, hell no. Yeah. Angelina Powell, do you have any spotlight videos coming out soon? I do. So you guys have probably noticed that I haven't gotten a ton of videos produced lately. A little bit of it is me being scatterbrained and just because of the work that I do here. There's a lot of distractions, and that's the nature of project management, right? You kind of have to like bounce from person to person to person constantly. And I promise you, I'm not micromanaging. I'm just regular managing, making sure people are okay. Not like, are you doing it right? So part of that kind of made me a little scatterbrained in my video production side of things too. So I'm working on like 8 videos simultaneously. And when you do that, none of them actually get made. But there's at least 3 coral spotlights that I'm working on. 3. And yeah, I'm not even joking. There's probably like between 6 to 8 videos that I'm like touching base on every now and again. So I can tell you that the most likely next video isn't going to be a coral spotlight. It is probably going to be a thing about amino acid feeding. Stephen Vigilante, my water is very clean. Is that a problem? Very clean is not a problem. Absolutely lacking nitrate and phosphate clean, yeah, that's a problem. But very clean, right now I would say that our quarantine tanks right now are very clean. And I have to say, the stuff that's in quarantine looks absolutely dazzling. I'm so happy with it. but you do want some phosphate, you do want some nitrate. Corals do require that because there's only so many sources for that, and when they lack it, there are certain biological processes that just shut down. The silent one. I just roll 2 to 3 blunts, sit back, relax, and answer questions and enjoy the show. Yeah. So, you know, like, I mean, I think that people that have watched this show for like a long time, it's like, I'm probably the most pro-drug person that doesn't actually use drugs. Like, I'm for legalizing everything as a policy. But for whatever reason, like the sort of stuff that people enjoy about drug use, I haven't experienced that same joy. I wish I did, but it's just not my thing. Tech Sinister, do you ship worldwide? No, we only ship to the US, I'm afraid. Let's see, Marco, what do you think about algae turf scrubbers versus skimmers? Isn't ATS the future of filtration? Okay, Marco, I'm not laughing at you, but that statement is hilarious. Okay, so algal turf scrubber technology is, no joke, 40 years old. And I was one of the earliest adopters of algae turf scrubbing, okay? It was not the future 40 years ago. It is certainly not the future now. Does it work? Yes. Versus protein skimmer, I happen to like protein skimmers just fine. There's certainly some benefits to algal turf scrubbers, certainly some not so great aspects of it. So specifically, the problem that I have with algal turf scrubbers is that a lot of times your water ends up turning yellow. Because, rewinding just a little bit, algal turf scrubbing got some amount of press from the Townsville Aquarium in Australia that used that as a primary method of filtration for their systems. I can pretty much tell you that no public aquarium considers the Townsville Aquarium the leader in methodology. Period. End of story, right? Nobody is trying to be the next Townsville. That methodology was then promoted and adopted in the United States, mainly promoted by a company in Indiana that's no longer there called Inland Aquatics. And I actually owned one of the original Inland Aquatics algal turf scrubbers from way back in the day. And yeah, they do work. It's just not for everyone. It's and I think that there's this resurgence now with algal turf scrubbing, but is it the future? Unless something has drastically changed from the past, which I don't know if they really have, I don't really see it. But yeah, I mean, if it works, so here's the thing. If something works well for you, by all means, keep doing it and don't be in a huge hurry to change off of it. Like, I think sometimes people end up chasing new technologies and new methodologies too aggressively. Just enjoy your successes. I mean, and this is something that we have to do more on the coral farming end. Like, we want to always try to better ourselves, right? And to better our operation. But sometimes, like, you have to sit back and say, you know, we're doing stuff really well right now. If we try to change this, you could royally screw something up. It happens more often than you think. So if you're into turf scrubbing right now, doing the algae thing, and just because I say I like skimming, don't stop doing what you're doing that's working. Just chill out, right? Bill Carson, $5 super chat. Thank you, Bill. Which LPS or soft corals will do okay in higher par? Okay. I want some high ups with the SPS. Heard acants, chalices, Euphilia, leather. True. Others? Acants, chalices, and Euphilia and leather in high par. I don't know. So I don't know if I would necessarily agree with acants and chalices loving it, or Euphilia for that matter. Probably not. There's certain leather corals though that would do well in high par. In particular, there's like this canary yellow Fiji toadstool that is like awesome, and they can pretty much handle a ton of light. And the more light that you put on them, the more canary yellow they become. Let's see. Kyle E. How does the hobby obtain new coral colors and patterns? Pretty much it gets harvested from the wild, and it gets popular, and that's kind of how the collection industry figures out what's really popular. Back in the day, they had no idea because there wasn't an internet, right? They didn't know what the heck was really selling, and they didn't really know what the heck it was selling for. Now that they know to mark their stuff up by 10,000% compared to what it used to be. Like back in the 80s, I bet you could probably find an Indonesian acanthophilia, right? And it'll be like wholesale $6. And by the time you get it to retail, it'll be like $80. That same acanthophilia now, wholesale, is $650. Retail is probably $1,800 because people know now. It's like, oh, like people will pay these prices. Back when I started this hobby, nobody knew what anybody paid for stuff. So yeah, you could totally walk into a random local fish store. Most of it's probably going to be horrible. Then you're going to see some absolute gem be practically free. Not so much these days. Okay, Edward McDonald, I will give you the most unhelpful answer to your question here. What type of salt would you recommend for softies, and is Red Sea Coral Pro more for acros? Okay. I have to preface this and say, I've only used like 2 different types of salt ever, okay? I am totally not like a salt mix evangelical. I think Red Sea Coral Pro is probably fine, even if you just wanted to do softies. But I've never personally used it. I've used Instant Ocean / Reef Crystals, and I've used what I currently use, which is Omega. And a lot of my choices all have to deal with how easy is it for me to order a pallet and have it delivered. Instant Ocean, kind of difficult, so I kind of went away from them. Now, Instant Ocean is a pretty good salt. Omega so far, pretty good. I really just haven't messed with anybody else. Now, Red Sea has been around a long time. I think that there's a lot of people that are just fine with Red Sea, and you're going to hear like tales of success and horror stories across the board with any salt that exists, right? So you might want to just like look at some people's tanks that have used Red Sea and that are happy with it. But most salts are a lot closer to one another than different, I would say. And I think there's examples of people having success with pretty much every brand of salt out there. Let's see. Okay, Keelan, have you found anything noteworthy from your quarantine systems? What are the main things you're watching for? Yeah, so little things. So anytime that we find like some kind of little algae that we don't want to reintroduce into the next system, the easiest thing is just to kick that one particular frag plug out. Like yesterday, after like 3 weeks, we found 1 aptasia, like things like that. So it's nothing like too crazy. And even when we're preparing stuff to put into quarantine, we're dipping it, and like Luke is propagating it right there to like basically it's just that coral going on our fresh new plug, fresh glue obviously, and then going right into quarantine. So which means that little aptasia had to have been growing literally on the flesh of a zoanthid. Microscopic little guy, and eventually turn into a little aptasia. And we see that out that goes, and it goes right back to the greenhouse and gets eaten by a brain, words, copperband butterfly. But that's basically it. So no, nothing too crazy. Well, I have a story about that, but I'll save it for the actual video. The quarantine systems. It's been a comedy of errors with the quarantine systems, but the actual quarantining process, it's pretty vanilla. You observe it every day, you dip it periodically, observe it some more, and then eventually it makes it into the show tanks, or not show tanks, like the grow out tanks or whatever. Let's see. Microbius Blue, you would make a great audiobook reader, Than. That's if I learned how to read. Okay. What corals, so Leslie's asking, what corals practically require spot feeding and one might stay away from if they never spot feed? So I would put on that list stuff like, that's obviously the easy stuff is the non-photosynthetic stuff, right? So Tabastria, non-photosynthetic gorgonians, those are like obligate feeders. You have to feed them or they die fast, right? So aside from those, I am a huge proponent of feeding, but there's a lot of corals that would probably do fine to a large degree without feeding. If there's any others that I would stay away from in particular, I would probably stay away from acans and micromusas, because those in particular, I think, just in my experience, show the most benefit from feeding. And if you're going to do no feeding of, like, spot feeding, I think that they might struggle a bit. Neil Pelling, my corals won't color up. All the parameters are stable, plenty of flow and lights. Why won't they color up? So I don't know what your water chemistry is, but there's a chance that, especially with newer systems where like elevated nutrients can inhibit coloration, and also it could just be stress. Like corals under stress are kind of like people that are under stress or are dealing with like inflammation. So this is a weird analogy, but please follow along. I know some folks that, you know what, I don't even know about some folks. I'll just give you my personal example, right? So when I worked in like the business law corporate-y side of things, okay, I was always under some degree of stress, and I don't express stress well, so I'm pretty like laid back all the time, right? But I would notice this one thing: if I like bit the inside of my cheek like this, my jaw would automatically start clamping down, like automatically, and I would just notice it, like, wow, that's a weird like reflexy type thing. And I weighed 183 pounds when I left that job. And when I basically lived the same sort of lifestyle but wasn't working at that job, I immediately dropped 30 pounds, and I wasn't exercising more or anything like that. My diet hadn't really changed or anything like that. But like when your body is like always stressed, like it'll tend to gain weight. That's just kind of like a thing, at least in my case. So I think that corals that are constantly feeling some sort of stressor in the environment, they will exhibit like poorer coloration. And a lot of times it'll be just browning out in some way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like you have to kind of be a detective and figure out what that stressor is and then try to eliminate that. Holly, do you have a favorite public aquarium or any that you would recommend visiting? There's a bunch of them. Now, I have a soft spot in my heart for Shed Aquarium in Chicago, because they had reached out to me and invited me to their black tie formal dinner, their fundraising dinner, which was awesome. And so, yeah, I will always go to bat for Shed Aquarium. And it's a pretty cool aquarium, too. It's a historic, giant aquarium in the United States, right? As far as like other aquariums that I've seen that I liked a lot, I enjoyed Okinawa in Japan. I enjoyed the one in Seoul, Korea. Like I was worried at first when I walked into that place, because it was like I was seeing some like goofy, brightly colored, like toy-looking aquariums. I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work out. But then as you made your way through the aquarium, it got more and more and more impressive. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is legit. This is legit. Singapore's aquarium is awesome. And you know, you'd think that I'd been to Georgia yet, and I haven't. I haven't been to the Georgia aquarium. I bet I would love it. I bet I would love it. But I haven't visited there yet. I'd like to. By the way, these guys are doing really well for us. Like, unless we're feeding them directly at that moment, they don't tend to open up all the time for us. But you can see that, like, if we just squirt out just a little bit of food on, this guy would be fully extended. And yeah, we've been propagating them for a little while. But this is one of those ones that I would not exactly recommend to everybody. But it is one of my favorite bright yellow corals that we dote on all day. They get fed at least a dozen times a day. Mostly reefs. You'd think that Than was on house arrest. He doesn't go anywhere unless he has to. That is true. Weirdly, coming up in April, I'm traveling 3 weekends. I'm going to Las Vegas. I'm going to Houston, and I'm going to Dallas, all in like a 5-week stretch. Oh, Marcus Aurelius 187, 82-minute late notification. Yay. Now I'm here. It's a party. Well, welcome, Marcus. So I guess one way to stay up to date is get on our mailing list. I think that we send out an email notification. Now, if you don't check your email, then that's on you, homie. But we try. We try. Greg Reefboy, Than, walking into your greenhouse in the new building doesn't show me any kind of laziness on your part. Your tanks are absolutely amazing, spotless, and well organized. It's a candy store for corals. So, thank you, Greg. I will take some credit for cleaning the glass. Occasionally, when I'm like just mentally fried, I will go and just start scraping glass tanks as like a brainless activity, and it's actually therapeutic. And I would have to say that, yeah, I do a lot of glass scraping when it's like, okay, this scripting is going nowhere, and I'm just like staring at my screen. I'm gonna go just scrape some glass tanks just to blow off steam. And so, like, yeah, it shows. Let's see. Tech Sinister. In order to maximize the fluorescence of a coral, does nitrate affect it? I think it does affect it. Less than you might think, but I think it does. And if yes, should it be around 10 or lower? So I'm not usually all about chasing numbers, okay? Like, if things are going well, I just try to keep it steady. I would be very happy if my tanks were at a consistent 10 nitrate. Very happy. Between 5 to 10 nitrate would be wonderful. One of our tanks right now is at 100. So 5 to 10 is sounding kind of nice. So this tank that this is currently in is not at 100. This is probably 25 to 50. But these things are fine. The problem is if suddenly one head of Euphyllia dies. You can't like figure out anything about it. It's like, why did this head of Euphyllia randomly die? Maybe it's your 100 nitrate. Yeah, maybe. We can still try, when we try to do stuff to lower it with varying degrees of not success. But yeah, it makes like trying to diagnose problems nearly impossible, because like there is this elephant in the room. It's like, yeah, it could be that 100 nitrate that you're dealing with. It could be a crab that's eating it, but you can never know, because until you deal with your 100 nitrate, you can't disqualify it as the problem, right? That's been fun. And it's only been fun because we started to test for it. It's probably been 100 nitrate for a decade. Let's see. Monnier McNamee. In the new systems, are you planning on trying clams again? Not out of the realm of possibility. The sourcing clams is kind of a slight issue. They come in a little small and a little fragile. But we like clams. Clams are cool. We might try it. Yeah, Matthew Sicca. Back in 1999, I remember buying an open brain coral, half of basketball in size, for $65. Yeah. Yeah. You don't even find, like, you know what? Nice open brain corals now wholesale are in the hundreds. Like hundreds of dollars. It's crazy. Let's see. A fungia plate that gets pretty sad if not regularly fed. Yeah, I could see that. Like fungia definitely like to get fed a lot. Bill Carlson, super chat follow-up. I see yellow toadstool leather and yellow Fiji leather. You were referring to the Fiji one, correct? Yeah, the yellow Fiji one is the one that likes a lot of high light and gets canary yellow under brighter and brighter light. Glenn Nelson, how often should I feed anemones? You know, you're going to get different answers on that. And I'm kind of on the fence. Sometimes people say that if you feed them too much, like the food rots in their belly or something like that, and they just die out. And sometimes like we do, and like the anemones look great, and sometimes one dies, and people here get freaked out, like we need to stop feeding it. So I don't know. Robert Warren, how about the Monterey Bay Aquarium? I've heard nice things. I haven't gone there though. Guanc Reef Keeping, I got no notification. Okay, so this is a PSA. PSA time. Sign up for our mailing list. We'll give you a notification by email. Yeah, because I mean, sometimes sometimes YouTube is like that. They just it just fails. You know what? I'm gonna do like a quick check here. What is it? You know what? We've actually had some pretty good attendance. Like the last time that we've had a completely like horrendous attendance, right? It was like we're getting like 1/3 our usual number. That's kind of weird. And that was because of a notification issue with YouTube. So it doesn't seem like that unless I got suddenly really popular and I'm only getting 1/3 of what I should be. No, like I'm okay with the audience that has shown up today, like the aggregate numbers. So hopefully it's not like a site-wide thing. So just in chat, just let me know whether or not you actually received a notification for this show. That'd be helpful. Because now, so Guanc, you're like the 3rd person that said that their notification came late. Okay, iReef, just a rough estimate on how big the frags are. How big are the frag plugs? They are a little over 1 inch, I would say. Hopefully that helps. Float serve, what's your favorite metal halide? 250 watt 14K or 400 watt 20K? Between those two, I'm going for the 400 watt 20K. I like a mix between the 400 watt 20K and the Ushio 10K. Those are my 2 faves. Okay, predator bass. Not related to saltwater or corals. I'm just reminiscing on the fact that it took me 3 fish to properly start up my tank. Huh. Yeah, that'll be really interesting because right now, currently, I have a 2,000 gallon system up and running, and I've got 2 damsels in the whole thing. Do you think it's cycled? I don't know. Tony Powell, hey Than, I've ordered stuff from the live sale. When should I expect them to ship? Happy reefing. So Tony, most of it will ship out on Monday, unless there's like an insane number of orders where some might have to get pushed off to Tuesday. Other thing, we're in the middle of kinda winter. This is the strangest entire year as far as like temperatures go. If there are some weather concerns, we will email you about those and might have to postpone shipping depending on your geography or if we suddenly have a blizzard on Monday. Not expecting a blizzard, but I haven't checked either. Anything could happen. Marlon Godet or Godet, greetings out of Aruba. Awesome. Welcome. Aruba sounds nice this time of year. Let's see. Fawaz Alshaya. Fawaz Alshaya. What are your thoughts on automatic calcium reactors like the Deltec or the Destaco? Okay, so I saw the Deltecs in action in the UK, and the tanks seemed very nice. I have seen personally the Destacos, and the place that I saw the Destacos had 5 to 10 giant units. It was a coral farm also, okay? They hated it, absolutely hated it, and they would have sold it to me at half cost for those units, and I politely declined. So I personally have not used either of the units. I use just regular old vanilla geocalcium reactors. They've worked pretty well for us. But no, it's a calcium reactor is like so simple that I don't know if like a ton of automation really benefits the process. Let's see. Matthew says the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga is very nice. I've heard that. Oh, you know what? I'm such a dummy. You know what's a really great aquarium is the Waikiki Aquarium in Hawaii. That's a great aquarium. It is tiny, teeny tiny, super cheap to get into. You'll spend no more than half an hour in there, and everything is straight fire in that place. It is so cool, so cool. And they even have like this outdoor tank that's just like in direct sunlight, and the Acropora in there look like they're fake glowing plastic in daylight. It's like so neat. Can't believe I forgot about the Waikiki Aquarium. Love that place. Now, I do have a story about the Waikiki Aquarium. So they had a what's that fish called? A peppermint angel. Those are like that $50,000 little pygmy angel. And I went there specifically to film that fish. Now, I was on vacation in Hawaii, right? But I made a special trip to the Waikiki Aquarium. It had died 2 days before I showed up. That's my luck. Wow, so a lot of people. It looks like half the people that had responded to the notification thing did not get a notification. Wow. Yeah, some people are like, yeah, I got notifications. Some people are like, no, I didn't. So one thing to check. So YouTube is like being anti-notification guys, but check to see if you're subscribed to the channel, if you hit the notification bell, and within the notification bell, there are different levels of notification. So double check for me, guys. Another PSA, right? Sign up to my mailing list. And the second thing is check to see if you have a setting on the notification bell that says like partial notifications. So get this. This is how bad they don't like subscribers. You can subscribe to my channel, which does next to nothing. You can hit the notification bell. And within that notification bell, you can select no notifications, partial notifications, or every notification. So I can't imagine somebody subscribing to my channel, hitting the bell button to then decline notifications. Come on, YouTube. The subscribe, but whatever, YouTube. Predator bass, possibly an error on the YouTube's end. It might not be an error on YouTube's end. It might be this triple tier notification system of theirs. So that's that. Ruth J is asking, how much light do lords require? Kind of middle of the road on that. I've seen some grow just fine in really low light, like under 50 par. And currently we keep some of ours in much higher lighting, and they do pretty well there. I think it's more of a feeding thing and a nutrient thing rather than a light thing. Now, how they color up, that's very much a light thing, but just for survival, I'm thinking shoot for maybe 100 par. Lenny, the aquarium under the CN Tower in Toronto is awesome. You know, I need to visit Toronto. It is so close. I mean, do you guys realize that I'm like closer to Toronto than I am to Cincinnati? And I've only flown through Toronto. It's crazy. Like, why haven't I gone to Toronto? I've heard so many good things about that city. Sunny Gould, I'm behind. Anyhow, I'm in Europe, and there's so much to learn in these live shows. Thanks, Dan. Oh, appreciate it, Sunny. Thank you. Glad you could make it. Tech Your Talk. Great, good. He got his notification. 3 notifications are none, personalized, and all. Yeah. You want all. Yes, yes, yes. Ship it to Germany, even though you're not shipping to Germany. Just ship it. Let's see. Those automatic calcium reactors are not really automated. They just work on a different principle that does not need tuning. Yeah, see, the thing is, like, a calcium reactor, I think by definition doesn't need tuning. It is such a set it and forget it sort of thing. Like, you don't need to like dial in a very specific pH. It's like horseshoes and hand grenades sort of thing. It's close enough. It'll work just fine being close enough. It'll work pretty well not being kind of off, as long as it's not totally you ran out of CO2 or there's no effluent actually making it back into the tank and you're just making a milkshake in the reactor. Short of those 2 situations, your calcium reactor is probably working pretty well. Let's see. Were you using Reborn? If so, concerned about needing to switch calcium reactor media? No, I think the only reason, okay, I don't know if you're asking me, but I happen to like what Reborn looks like. Like the shape and the weight of everything. The only problem with Reborn is that it's just very expensive compared to the alternatives. But no, I don't have any problem using it. In fact, I would love to have like a pallet of Reborn. I just don't want to pay for a pallet of Reborn. Okay, so when I was in vacationing in Vietnam last year, one of the beaches looked like the entire beach was Reborn. And like the entire thing was like finger-sized, pieces of heavy calcium carbonate. And I was like explaining to my vacation buddies, it's like, guys, look at this beach, okay? This stuff is $10 a pound. What you're looking at in this beach is like $15 million or something like that. It's crazy. Yeah, pricey stuff. Scott Morrison is asking, question, I'm looking for a bright red coral for my Fluval 13.5. I prefer LPS for movement. Any suggestions? I'm a 2-year reefer, so easy stock. Okay. There's not a ton of selection when you're talking bright red, but the 2 that come off the top of my head, unfortunately none of these are inexpensive, but one of them is a bright red DIASERIS plate coral. So not a ton for movement, but it's a plate coral on the bottom of the tank, brightest red imaginable. The other would be one of our bright red GONIOPORA. Again, less great for the beginner, but not necessarily that much more difficult than a lot of other large polyp stony corals either. Also fantastic coloration on that coral. So between those 2, yeah, I can't really think of any other crazy bright red ones that I would recommend. Guanc reef keeping. I'm half an hour from the Baltimore aquarium and I like it. Strangely, that's another one. That's like I've never been to the Baltimore aquarium. I really should. I've heard a lot of good things about it, even though it's older. Entities asking, hey Than, visit the Piran Aquarium in Slovenia if you want to visit a tiny aquarium. You only find local stuff from here. Interesting. So, at one time, the city of Akron, where I'm living now, right? They were talking about doing an aquarium, and I wasn't a part of these discussions. I was a nobody with no YouTube channel back then, right? And this is something that always comes up. Okay, so the reason I know about this is because I know people that were at this meeting. And this is such a typical thing that you hear at these sort of meetings, okay? It's like, we should feature the fauna of this location. And I'm like thinking, that's some gray minnows in a canal. Like, no, you guys should absolutely not do that. Do you want people to come to the aquarium or not? You need the cool stuff here. Like, this is Akron. Nobody's interested in, like, I don't, like, what boring fish are there, like, swimming around in Akron? Come on. So anyway, you hear that a lot from, like, you know, like the people that want to be in the meeting and contribute something. This is why I left office life, by the way. This is like very, very typical of the types of like meetings that are going to be. You're going to have somebody that just wants to interject some genius and be like, yeah, we should totally feature all the stuff that's growing here in Akron. Come on, dude. Okay. Back to the questions. What's your favorite leather? Zachary Buckland is asking, what's your favorite leather? My favorite leather, it's going to be it's either going to be one of two things: the bright yellow Fiji leather, or it's going to be like the Japanese deep water neon green guys, toadstools. Let's see. Edward McDonald, you should hit up the Niagara Coral Show. I don't do a ton of traveling, as I am about to do a ton of traveling. I don't get out much. But you know what? One of these days, maybe I'll have a Tesla Cybertruck, plug in some destinations, and just check right on out and just show up there one day. But I don't like to travel. Not a lot. Ugly Reefer 1 fan, do you have a video for growth patterns for different acros? I don't. That's an interesting idea, though. It's an interesting topic. A lot of times acros don't get to huge sizes here because we end up cutting them up pretty aggressively. Dinaska Herrera, have you went to the Miami Aquarium? No, I didn't even know that they had one. I'm sure that they all do, like bigger cities do, but I just didn't know that there was one there. 49 Hamburger. What's the best way to maintain salinity with minerals with little to no tech? The easiest one is just to do water changes. Just, you know what, a bucket and a siphon, and just make sure that, you know, your salinity with the new water is correct, and you're good to go right there. It'll just be a lot more elbow grease, but that's it. Yep, Daniel, there you go. He's got your back right there, water changes. Yeah, and here's the thing: if you're willing to put in that elbow grease to do those water changes, you know, mix up the water in advance, like a day before, and just do like consistent water changes, you'll go really far in this hobby. It's only when, you know, we want to get to more into the automation that you know, we start to get into a lot of you know, what goes into really the big cost of the hobby. Is you want to get away from doing certain tasks and starting to automate that. You want to do certain things better. But if you want to just like cheap brute force, you can cheap brute force this hobby. Like I said, there's some really dirt cheap lights for like about $100. It might be like 150 now. I don't know. It's on Amazon, right? 150 bucks, let's say. And a bucket and a refractometer and a heater and a pump, and you're good. Like that's really it. You can do the hobby right there. No protein skimmer, no calcium reactor, no controllers, like real simple stuff. You can do it. It's just more work. Okay. Aaron J. Okay, so I have a first timer question. I have had tanks that have had not so good luck with keeping corals alive. This time I started to go all out. I put a system in my garage to start the seeding process. I've got a 150 tub full of new dry rock, 100 wide tub of 4-inch deep sand bed, connected to a 90-gallon coral tank. I want to connect a 400-gallon bare bottom. Is this an overkill? There's no such thing as overkill. Come on now. Do you even know who you're talking to? But no, I think it'll work. I think the only concern that I would have connecting a 400-gallon to that is backflow drainage. So you have to make sure that it doesn't overflow your sumps and everything like that. That's really the only thing that I would worry about. 49 hamburger. Damn, I'm low on space, so pre-mixing is a hassle. If you have room for a 5-gallon bucket, that's all you need. 5-gallon bucket. Scott, I was thinking Goniopora, but everyone says they're really hard to keep. It depends. Some are more hardy than others. I got a blue SPS, would love to know its name. Any ideas? Dude, I have no idea. It could be anything. There's a lot of just blue SPS. Like, there's probably 50 different types, to be perfectly honest. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. So what number are we on? This is coming close to the end of the live show, I bet. You know, I feel like I'm living in a simulation some days. So this coral here, right, item number 189, is I think it might be non-photosynthetic, but it's done well for us for over a year. If you look really closely, you can see these gray bands on its body, okay? So for you folks that are on a phone, I don't know if you'll be able to see this that easily. Those gray bands are commensal brittle starfish that wrap themselves around gorgonians. Isn't that cool? Like, I don't know if they're necessarily good or bad, but they're there. Like, the entire like thing, like the mother colony, let's call it a mother colony of this red and yellow gorgonian, is covered, like completely wrapped in these brittle stars. Like, so cool. I should do like an updated video of different symbiotic relationships like that. I don't think that they're a pest anyway. All right, so Gary Watson is asking, hello, I'm moving a Red Sea reefer to a room with a skylight. Do I need to block the light? You might. So getting a lot of direct sunlight does wonky stuff to your tank. This is coming from a guy that has coral reef systems in a greenhouse. But then again, that's probably why I built a warehouse next to it. We have, even in this warehouse where we have our quarantine tanks, at different parts of the day, we've got these, these windows, and they shine sunlight directly into the quarantine tank. But the back of the quarantine tank is facing the window, and that's where the overflow box is. And we have one overflow box that gets a lot of direct sunlight and one overflow box on the other tank that doesn't. And sure enough, the one that gets the most direct sunlight grows a lot of problematic algae in it. Who would have guessed, right? So, yeah, depending on the size of your tank and everything, you might want to do something about that light. It could be an issue. Wouldn't be the end of the world either, but you never know. You never know. If you're looking to control every aspect of your reef, that's definitely going to throw like a big old variable wrench right in there to have a skylight. Leslie Stonebreaker, I see round brain corals at public aquariums. Do you sell these? Do they naturally grow round, or do you need a round rock to grow in? Okay, looks like officially the live sale is done, but I will do a little bit of overtime questions, just a couple, okay? And by the way, thank you all very much for attending. For the folks that are like, oh, show's over, I'm out of here, okay? Again, thank you so much for attending. I do have some new videos planned for you guys coming up, so check those out. But to answer Leslie's question, most brain corals naturally will grow into that shape. So the ones that you might want to do some research on would be FAVIA. They will eventually globe out. Olulophilia, which is like a maze brain coral, will also turn into like a mound. The ones that kind of don't are like open brains, like Trachiophilias, not quite so much. But yeah, most of the other types of brains will eventually form like that rounded shape. All right. I just wanted to check up on a couple of things. Yeah, but anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm about to lose my voice, believe it or not. It's just a matter of time. So, yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next live show. I do have it actually on the calendar, so I can tell you when you can expect it. Did I just lie? Oh, I totally just lied to you guys. It's not on the calendar. It'll be sometime in March, fellas. All right, guys. That is it from me. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'm off. Bye-bye.